This evening, we are welcoming Nancy Remkus as our featured, yes, thank you, Knowledge Friday speaker for May. The Knowledge Friday series is all about highlighting locals in our community who have done outstanding things in their careers or backgrounds. And tonight we honor Nancy Remkus, who I've known since I was 5 years old, because she, during her 32-year spent at Sag Harbor Elementary School, we overlapped, and she was my music teacher, and she's also the founder of Morning Program. Yeah, please clap for Morning Program, honestly. Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a better way to describe an outstanding individual than someone who sang every single morning to the entire elementary school, and who also tried to teach six-year-olds how to play hot cross buns on the recorders. And we were really bad, but you definitely tried. But yeah, I can't even imagine what it would have been like to go to elementary school and not have that hour or so of just getting to reconnect with your peers and being able to sing our little hearts out with a ton of really great songs. It's crazy because if you get enough Pearson alumni in a room and start singing one of those songs, you'll have muscle memory will kick in, and you'll have a bunch of adults in their 20s singing Puff the Magic Dragon and The Cat Came Back, just line by line. And her community engagement didn't end when she retired. She is now the interfaith minister at the Old Whalers Church and is doing literally everything in her power to keep the organization alive and flourishing. And she leads by creativity, community, and enjoying life. So she has graciously offered to sing a few songs for us this evening, and she's going to open with a Morning Program original. She's then going to show a really incredible slideshow with all of these archival photos of Sag Harbor throughout the years that include her family, who's been here for 3 generations. And then her and April are gonna do a little interview and a Q&A, and then she's gonna close with some Nancy Remkus originals, which weren't in Morning Program, which was really exciting. So please help me in welcoming Nancy Remkus.
Thank you, Talina. It's such a beautiful thing when you're a teacher to see your students all grown up and doing wonderful work, and how exciting it is. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. Thank you for inviting me here. Thank you for being here this evening as I share sort of my life story and some of the things that I've been involved in. So I like to walk in the morning early, and this is one of the pictures of the church that I've taken that I love. So here we are with Knowledge Friday. And I'm going to just start with an old picture of what North Haven used to look like. So here's the bridge, as you can see, and then how few houses, and it was just all woods. And that's how I grew up for the most part. We were free to go and explore and had the freedom to carve trails and build forts and be a part of nature. So you can see the Hemmings house, the Brooks home, the trail, some of the original houses in North Haven. And this is my best friend when we grew up. She lived on Fresh Pond Road. Some of you are familiar with Fresh Pond Road. And we used to skate on the ponds over there and walk from the bus to each other's house. And here we are collecting wood for building a fort. And back then, everything was so precious, right? We'd have to ask my father if we could borrow nails or a nail to make a fort. So this is a song that we used to sing at Morning Program, and it's about growing up on North Haven with my very best friend, who's Joyce Maroney. She's, as you'll tell by the song, her family up and moved to Canada when they were in 10th grade. So
of trails we travel each day. We were very best friends. More like sisters, we shared so much, helping each other, growing up, wiping the tears, spending the years. We were very best friends. Out on the salt marsh, gathering mussels to sell to the fishermen in town. Our fingers were numb from the cold, muddy bogs. We were very best friends. More like sisters, we shared so much, helping each other, growing up, wiping the tears, spending the years. We were very best friends. She moved away in the 10th grade, leaving a space no one could fill. The same old places seemed to change without my very best friend. More like sisters, we shared so much, helping each other, growing up, wiping the tears, spending the years. We were very best friends. We were very best friends. We were very best friends.
She and I decided to teach ourselves how to play the guitar when we were 14 years old. We'd sit around with Neil Young albums, Joni Mitchell albums, and try to learn all the songs. It wasn't like it is today, right? You can go to the computer and get the guitar chords. We had to really work at that. Order books and wait months and stuff, but that was probably one of the many best things in my life, was picking up the guitar, and it really has defined who I am in this world. And I've just enjoyed it so much, and it's been such a big part of my life. So here we go on some of the slides that I brought along. Just a little bit of home. Now, this is going to demonstrate some of the changes that I've experienced while living in Sag Harbor for the past 65 years. Or you know, what's the commercial where they say, age is just a number, and mine's unlisted. That's one of the better lines, I think, of TV commercial. So, and I know, no matter where you grew up, I know a lot of us grew up here, but no matter where you grew up, we've all experienced change, right? That change no matter where you are. So here are some of the changes that I've witnessed here in Sag Harbor and some of the pieces of my life. So here are the 6 of us, good Catholic family here in Sag Harbor. The Remkuses, the McMahons, the Scavonis, some of the larger families. And these are my sisters and my brothers. And can you guess which one is me? Sitting down in the plaid. You've got it. There she is. I was number 5 out of 6. I have number 2 here and number 4 here of my sisters. So that's us in our house. And here we are, all grown up, the 6 of us. And believe it or not, all 6 of us live in Sag Harbor. That's remarkable, right? That we were able to, what a blessing that we were able to stay. But 5 of them live in North Haven, and that's where my mom, she's no longer with us, but she lived in North Haven, and all the rest of them lived in North Haven, and she'd always introduce me that this is my Nancy. She'd say she's a kindergarten teacher and a minister, and she lives in Sag Harbor. And I used to call her and say, Mom, will you accept a long-distance call from Sag Harbor Village? So that's the 6 of us. So this is the house we grew up in. Now my father, when he was a fisherman, and you'll see pictures of that, but he bought an acre of land on, we called it Cook's Creek, I think they call it Great Pond now in North Haven, right, a half a mile from the bridge, and they bought that acre of land for $1,700. And that's where we grew up. That's a tiny house, and there were 6 of us, and my parents, and I think that's my grandma there. So she sometimes lived with us. And anyway, we all shared one tiny bathroom throughout our lives, so we managed. And this is my sister Sue, who's here, and you can see the pond behind us. And that was just like, we grew up on a lot of fresh air and nature. We had no season tickets to the ballet. We had some golden books around the house. And anytime my father would come home, we'd say, get outside and play. Get outside. We had a canoe, and we would canoe all over with an old Roman canoe. Here we are on one of the rowboats at the park. I think they still have them, the rowboats. That's 4 of us. I'm the one in the middle with the big ears. It took me a long time to recover from that. So maybe I'm still working on it. That's my brother Robert. Now here is my kindergarten graduation class from Pearson. They didn't have Sag Harbor Elementary School there, nor either of the gyms, nor the middle school wing. Every class from kindergarten to 12th grade was in the original white brick building, which you can see behind. That's Mrs. Edwards. She was a lot of people's kindergarten teacher. And was that Mr. Crozier? The principal. And those were like cloth gowns. It was so fancy. I don't know if you can tell which one it's me, or that matters, but. My father's father and mother are in the center. This is their wedding picture. They came to Sag Harbor from Lithuania in the early 1900s. They were very fancily dressed there. This beautiful picture. He's a Remkus. So this is my grandfather as well. You've seen this picture. This is Jean's work. And he's watching the house. It says it's the French house, crossing over the bridge to North Haven. And that's where he had the fishing station. Now, my grandfather, I believe, had squatters' rights to a little tiny fishing shack on that block, which is now between the Bialski condos and Steinbeck Park. So they had rowboats, so we'll see more of that. This is my dad. And he was a bayman and a fisherman. And they're getting ready, I believe, to go hull seining, which some of you might remember, when you take a net in the boat and you make a big half circle in the water, and people get on both sides and they pull, and there's the net kind of the buckets into a place where the fish go. And they used to take us as kids all out hull seining at night. It was a beautiful thing. You would see the moon sparkling off the fish, and the quiet. It was a big part of our life. So we ate a lot of fresh fish. And this is my dad with my oldest sister, and that's one of the fish. Look at the truck in the back. And this is over by where Steinbeck Park is now. I'm sure on one of these slides I was going to tell you that my father and his brother Jimmy bought the entire block from Cape Pasa to Whalers Marina, the entire block where 7-Eleven building is, and the Bialski condos, and whatever else, this whole Steinbeck Park, all of that. They bought that in the 1940s for, I believe, $4,700. The entire block. And we all had basically made our living from that. I love the truck in the back. Malaria? She's older than me. Now here, I believe, is Dad, and I'm not sure if that's my grandfather, but they are, does everyone know what they're doing? Shucking scallops. We all had to learn how to shuck scallops. Yeah, they were plentiful. Actually, when my father died in 1979, he died on the first day of scallop season, pushing the boat back into the yard. He was 66 years old. And he had pulled up, what's either 7 or 9 bushels of scallop, 7.5 bushels of scallops all on his own, and died of a massive heart attack. But you can see the shack in the background where the fishing station.
Did you have to learn how to shut without a glove?
I don't think we used gloves.
They did.
Right. We had a little shucking shack in our yard in North Haven as well. And we would go in there, and, you know, have a counter with holes in it, and flip the shell in and take the guts out. And it was it's a skill that you don't lose, I don't think. I haven't shucked anything. And this is when my father actually was born on Liberty Street in Eastville, and they were kind of poor immigrants. And one time he said he was so hungry, he went to the neighbor gave him a mustard sandwich. And they said, how was that mustard sandwich? He said, it's the best mustard sandwich I've ever had. But then when he married my mom, and they moved to this was like a family house, and it's 130 Madison Street. So it's right up here, and you can see it. It's beautifully renovated. But that was the family house and some of the kids. Now this is my dad, and you know he's at work, and where do you think he might be working in this picture? He's at Boulevard. Almost everybody, including my husband Tom, has worked at Boulevard. It employed hundreds of people in this village for many years. And he was, I believe, a foreman and a machinist at Boulevard. And so then I put on, here was Boulevard watch case back from 1937 to 1981. And Faye's, I think you might have heard, that was the original factory. And they moved it here from New Jersey in order to help boost the economy. Because once the whaling industry had failed or departed and the gold rush came along, there wasn't a lot of economic growth in Sag Harbor, so he moved this out. And I think a lot about what we talk about, affordable housing and stuff. Well, Mr. Faye's, when he built this factory, he also built a number of homes that you'll see all over Sag Harbor Village to house the workers that were working in his factory. Now we know what Boulevard looks like. It's beautiful though, isn't it? It was quite a change. Now this is my mom, and she's standing in the back of our motel. So if you were in Bialski's condo, this is what it would have looked out onto. And you can see my Uncle Jimmy's fishing shack up in the right, and his dragger was right there, parked at the dock. And my mom actually was an RN. She was trained at Southampton Hospital as an RN, and then when my father decided to build a motel, she left her job there to run the motel, which became our family business. Now, this ties into the whole picture, but this is the Sag Harbor Railroad. Most of you probably know that it came into Sag Harbor from 1870 to 1939. And if you can see up on this map, the railroad line that came down past Otter Pond, past the Upper Cove, and all the way towards Longhorn. And the block that they bought, apparently my father had said that it held the trestles for the cars that weren't in use. So when they bought that block, apparently they lit it on fire, and he said Sag Harbor was like under a big black cloud of smoke when they burnt the trestles. They weren't into, ecology back then. I don't think it had been introduced, but so that became their property. And here's the railroad that went all the way to the end of Longmore, and they brought torpedoes for torpedo testing from Bliss Torpedo Company, which was there all the war, and they tested those torpedoes in the bay in Sag Harbor, and they off of Long Beach. And they would bring them all the way out. And apparently it wasn't the live torpedoes, right? You guys know more about this than me.
Were these ferries? Were those steamboats?
maybe 2 or 3 days, was it? I don't remember. Jane, do you remember how long it took to take a steamboat from New York to here? These are our,
I can't remember, but people used to take it overnight. Sometimes sleep there, but I don't remember. It was but following the train tracks that go to the end of Flowood, that's where they picked up the delivery of coal, so that when they, and also the location where one of the engines slipped off because the whole.
I took that picture out, I didn't.
Yeah.
I took it out of the thing because I'm like, how am I going to explain that?
So when they did the dredging on that west side, we found lots of coal because it had obviously spilled on probably every day occasion.
Right. Now this was the railroad station. That's sort of where our post office and the drive-through bank is right now. And this was donated by money, again, from Olivia Holcomb Sage, or as people call her, Mrs. Russell Sage, and Mrs. Aldridge. They both gave the money for the building of this railroad station. And they said it was one of the finest railroad stations anywhere. And then it fell kind of into ruin, as you can see. And it was taken down, I was alive and I can remember, it was taken down, I think, 1965. And that's, I think, the Tunerville trolley. So when the Sag Harbor used to be what we call Montauk, the end, but the end of the railroad line was Sag Harbor, and it never went out until Montauk until quite a bit later, like 1895, I believe. And so it stopped here, and Sag Harbor became the end. But then it was not used as often, so they went down to just a trolley, which was called the Tunerville trolley, but that failed as well. And then the railroad took you all the way out to East Hampton and to Montauk. That's the Tunerville trolley. So neat to have these old pictures, right? Now, this is the Long Pond Greenbelt. Has everybody hiked on the Long Pond Greenbelt? So this is, if you go to Mashhashabewit Park, which is some of the people call Mashed Potato Park, but if you go there and you head straight into the woods past the tennis courts, you'll come to this path, and this is the old railroad bed. And it leads, it's part of the Long Pond Greenbelt, so it's very safe and marked trails, which are beautiful, and people bring their dogs there often, and the trail, it's a pretty extensive trail system, but when you go up there, a lot of people don't realize that Sag Harbor has so many beautiful freshwater ponds. So up this trail you come to Little Long Pond, Round Pond probably first, Little Round Pond, Long Pond, which is huge. And you can also see Crooked Pond, which Annie Cooper Boyd, who is our Sag Harbor Historical Society person, she used to go ice skating up there and on Crooked Pond, but times have changed. But it's a beautiful trail system, and most people, and I don't think most of my life since I grew up in North Haven, that I spent any time on this trail system or knowing about the ponds other than Round Pond. But the ponds are huge and beautiful, and it's definitely worth the hike up here. And now, on that property that my father and his brother bought, my father and a couple others with help built a motel. And it was called the Whalers Motel. You can see that the sign looks like a sail. That's my father's creativity. And I just get such a kick out of how high-end this hotel was. TV and heated. And that was about it. Actually, there were 9 beautiful rooms, and they all looked out over the bay, and they had the most magnificent view. And you didn't need air conditioning because the breeze just blew off the water. And the people that came there, they became like our family. We'd see the same ones every year. They'd request the same room every year. And it was really a beautiful part of our lives.
What year was that?
We built it in the 60s, right? 64 to 84. So we all cleaned rooms since I was about 7. Even the day of my father's funeral, we were cleaning rooms. Yeah. And the funny thing is, here's a motel with a new sign. But we would run the motel from our house in North Haven. So if somebody wanted to rent a room, we would would tape, the Scotch tape, the dime onto the telephone booth, which stood right to the right of the hotel. And we would say, for rooms, please come in and call. And with that dime, they would call our house. We had a red phone at home we called the hotline. And they would come and they would call the house and like, okay, who's going down around the road? But it was really a great business. It was just very consuming. So here's the motel from the water. You can see the motels on the right, and then that's my Uncle Jimmy's fishing station where it says Remkus. Most of you probably remember that, seeing that, right? That wasn't too long ago. There's his dragger. And he rented rowboats there and motorboats, and people have really good memories, I think, of coming and renting those boats. And then to the left of the fishing station, you'll see that building. Many of you know it as a professional building, but it was the Seaside restaurant. And before that, the Potato House. And that was my Uncle Tony and Aunt Ruby's restaurant. And it was a huge gathering spot, like for parties and teachers' events, and even my oldest sister's wedding reception. It was a very popular, wonderful place, but it kind of fell to ruin over the years. And we owned where the 7-Eleven building is, and my father, they talked him into selling it to build an A&P there because they thought that Sag Harbor needed a grocery store. And then where Cape Pasa is, we had a gas station, which he offered to sell to the village for like $80,000 or $90,000, and the village turned it down.
We sold that for $20,000.
So the $20,000 for there. And then when we sold the motel, it went for a big whopping $250,000. Yeah, the gas bowl, which is no longer there. And now, here's what's there. The LC's condos.
Hasn't changed a bit.
The view of the water, and that's the front where our motel was. And here's just another picture, so you can see the Seaside restaurant. It was just a great place, and you can see the rowboats that used to be rented. And people would come and gather. I remember my husband telling me, he said if he's on a midnight shift, he would come and talk to my Uncle Jimmy. Early in the morning, they'd be out fishing. And here's the motel, an aerial view. I'm not sure how they got that. And that was Whalers Marina next door. Now, this is my Aunt Rose Black, the owner and proprietor of the Black Movie, which I'll show you a picture of in a little while. And here we are I think we're at Left Sag. In the old days, we called it Main Sag, Left Sag, and Left Sag. And now they all have different names, right? They call it Sag Main, and then it's Peters Pond. And then the next one is Gibson, and then Peters Pond. So, but you can notice that this is a summer day, and there's almost nobody on the beach. You would go in the summer, and you would have the whole beach to yourself. There's a couple people, but they're probably related. Doing marshmallows. That's me next to my curly hair. Now, this is a picture I found of the old Whalers Festival. Look at how many people used to attend the parade at the Whalers Festival. You were one of the people that started the Whalers Festival. At our motel, we would have international whaling teams come to stay at the motel, and say it was Norway or Denmark. They would put their flags across on the doors to show, their spirit. And they would have longer whale boats, like almost the one at the Whaling Museum, and they would have international races with these international teams that came into town. And look at, I just am astounded, like how deep it looks like the Macy's Day Parade in Manhattan. And then, I just threw this in because it was such an important part of our life. Do you all remember going to the drive-in movies in Bridgehampton? It was the best. We would go in our pajamas, they would like stuff us all in the station wagon. And then at intermission, we would run out to the playground in our pajamas. There was these horse swings, and they would show popcorn and stuff, and it was the best. But this is now where King Cullen is. But it was a huge part of the fun of our lives. here's the Black Buoy. Does anybody remember the Black Buoy? Yeah. I don't know if we call it a famous bar or an infamous bar. It was run by my Aunt Rose, and her married last name was Black, so that's why it was called Black Buoy. A lot of people don't realize they think it's like the color of the buoy, but I guess it could be both. But there aren't a lot of pictures of it, but it was probably a place that had a number of bar fights, a number of people who had their first drink there. I had lots of stories, and
Where exactly was it?
it is where El Cheeseburger.
Oh, that's right.
Or my aunt owned this and the sandbar at the same time. And she
Women were not allowed in there.
in the Black Buoy.
Basically.
Well, you might not want to go in there. But they had some, yeah, my brother Chris was being born. My mom had to have someone watch me, so she sent me to the Black Buoy with my Aunt Rose. And I can still remember, I was 4. I can remember being there with my Tammy dolls on the, where people put their feet up. I had my Tammy dolls all lined up. And we went to her house for chicken noodle soup. Actually, she did the apartments above there and the one above the sandbar. I lived in there for a time. They were actually beautiful apartments. And she was not a drinker, Aunt Rose. Not a drinker at all. But she ran that place like a tight, like a, was it something kind of shit? And there's, I guess, metal Photoshop. Now, this is my teaching career. Now, this is me as a young teacher. Probably, I don't know how long. I've been retired 9 years this year. And so this is when I was pretty young and new. But I like this, I found this picture and I thought, oh, Joni Mitchell's song right up on that chart. They Paved Paradise. So it's been my mission my whole life to sing Joni Mitchell and to teach kids about caring for the earth. But what a fun place it just looks like. And here's the infamous morning program. I know Talina talked a bit about this in her introduction. And morning program started when we celebrated Earth Day down in Manchester Park. And then they said, well, that was so much fun, why don't we keep doing that? And we just, every single morning, every student and teacher and the principal all begin the day together every single day.
She used to leave it in.
And I don't know, Talina, are you in that picture?
I don't think so, unfortunately.
There was a lot of years there, right?
Yeah.
So we would sing, we do the pledge and we'd sing a patriotic song and we'd recognize birthdays. And we'd sing a lot of songs and teach a lot of, character ed and how to care about each other and kindness and love. And on Fridays, I did write the school song that they still sing every Friday, and the whole school would get out and go arm in arm. I mean, you remember a couple students. And we'd sing together, and it just created an atmosphere where everybody knew each other. We all knew each other in the halls, and I think it was less bullying and stuff because we had this family feeling all the time, which was really wonderful. And probably one of the things that I really missed most about teaching.
Did the parents sing as well?
Yes. You can see like some parents scattered on the floor. So when the kids are little, they allow their parents to sit with them. But by 5th grade, the parents they are asked to move to the back. Not by us. They're asked to move to the back by their children. Come on. It was just a great program. I mean, I could probably talk like 3 hours just about the morning program, but we all loved it. And here we are at morning program outside. And that's Kim, my friend, and we taught American Sign Language at morning program. And every year we have a theme. And here's Santa, who's my husband. And he's coming in, and that's our principal, Matt Malone, on the very right. He's still there now. And so it continues, even though I'm not there, it continues with Mr. Fox, Mr. Lahan, and Deanna Lacasio. So they have 3 singers. Now, after I started playing guitar, I started to write my own music, and this is my first CD, or I should say it's a cassette. And I was going to say about this, even though I didn't know Nada was going to be here, that this was a sell-out item because of the workshop and the 5 and 10. has a song about Sag Harbor, and that's the back of my Uncle Jimmy's dragger at the fishing station. I know. Now, we come to the next part of the presentation, and that is, as you know, Old Whalers Church, with the steeple intact before the hurricane in 1938. And I am now the pastor there, as Delina mentioned, as an interfaith minister, but I grew up Catholic across the street. For the first 40 years of my life, I was really involved at St. Andrews and sang there, the liturgy committee and all that. And as my own spirituality evolved, I became an interfaith minister by going to a program in New York City called One Spirit Interfaith Seminary for 2 years. And I became an interfaith minister. And then they were having some hard times, and they said, would you come and be a supply minister? And I said, certainly. And so I've been there now. I was there 8 months, and then they had another minister. Because I'm not Presbyterian, I completely understand that. And then it got to be like 10 or 12 people, so they're saying, now we need you to come back and try to build things up. And I said, I'm there with the understanding that in the meantime, they will look for the appropriate Presbyterian minister. But as you might know, there aren't that many around. You know, Springs doesn't have one, and Amagansett, East Hampton has just temporary, Southampton temporary. So there aren't a lot of ministers around. And I keep wondering what's going to happen to religion. I don't know if you can ask Bill Maher, he has his own ideas on that. But, and I say, if we are running away from religion, what are we running towards? And just an interesting thing. But my message, thankfully, is more inclusive. So we're welcoming everybody in, and we have some really exciting and interesting programs. And last week we had the rabbi come and speak. This week on Sunday, Bill Grimble. Do you remember the famous Christine Grimble? Her husband is making the trip down from Vermont to be there this Sunday. And just kind of fun and interesting and an inclusive, more progressive, evolutionary religious message. But this was the steeple, and that was 185 feet tall. And it was the first thing, they say, that was seen when whales boats would come around the corner at Montauk Point. The first thing they see from Montauk was this steeple. And there are some people would like to see it rebuilt and it to become a cell tower. So there's some discussion about that. It's such an interesting, can you imagine being up there? I did a funeral recently and said, oh, that's my uncle. And you can see the clock, it had 4 faces, and it was built by Ephraim Byram, and he was a famous clockmaker. And his house is actually at the end of my road. In the 1800s, he built the clock that's also at West Point. But what happened with this clock is that there was so much sway because the steeple was so tall that they kind of took it out pretty soon, and it went over to East Hampton Methodist, was it? Did it go to? Well, one of the other churches. And this is like just some of the detail. What I think is one of the most amazing things about this church is that they started building it in 1843, I believe, and 11 months later, it opened. I said, we can't do a bathroom renovation in 11 months. But 11, and they had, the opening had 1,000 people attend. And they kept the whale boats in the harbor so that the whalers could come to the first service. So 1,000 people. I think they might have been smaller then, but it's a beautiful, it's unbelievably beautiful church. And here it is from a distance, which is really interesting, right? I think that must be from Hampton Street or 114, looking towards the church in that direction, with no houses there. Looks like someone might have had a garden. You don't see St. Andrews. And here I am, smiling. And now we have some kids that attend, which is a wonderful thing. And this is, we are doing something for Earth Day. And we had a Christmas pageant for the first time in 15 or 20 years. And there's know if you know the story, but this church, which is right up the road, maybe a block away from here, with a quick walk, it is a National Historic Landmark, one of the few. And they were trying to ascertain the history behind it and make sure that it had the right qualifications to become a National Historic Landmark, which Randy Croxton did a lot of work for. But they had it attributed to the architect Menard Lefebvre, but they couldn't prove that Menard Lefebvre was the architect in order to make it the historic landmark. So they went into the library and they found the letter that one of the young men who were working on it sent to his mother, and his mother was in New York City, and he was like, I don't really like my job here. All the other ones, they get the good jobs. And then he talked about the opening, and he said, at that opening, I was standing next to Menard Lefebvre. And that one letter proved that this was Menard Lefebvre's work and became a National Historic Landmark. And they say that's the only piece of information that they have that of this being in process. They have no other written record of the process of building this church. But it is a spectacular sanctuary and building. And actually, here's some of the kids from. And then we had an interfaith Thanksgiving service called Prayer, Poem, and Pie. And we had 12 of our sort of local clergy, and then we had pie afterwards. It was really a beautiful thing. I really feel like that's the only way we're going to find world peace. Here's Trish Curran's wedding outside, and not from this wedding, but another. We got a donation to paint the front of the building. They said it's one woman. Am I talking too long? Oh, okay, sorry. So one woman called me up, and I was in the office, and she said, you know, did you have September 10th free? Because she had booked East Hampton Presbyterian Church, and East Hampton Presbyterian Church then went under renovation, and she couldn't have her wedding there because they had taken the pews out. She said, do you think you have September 10th available? Because I'd like to get married there. And I'm like, Because I don't know if you saw it before it was painted, but it looked like a haunted house. So I said, well, you know, before you do that, I recommend that you just take a drive by. Take a drive by and then give me a call back. And she called back, and she said, and I think it might have been her mom that said, you know, we'd really like to make a donation to paint the whole front of the church of $20,000. If you have it painted by September 10th. And we were like somewhere in August. So we got this one painter, and he's like, no, we need to have 50% down, and we need to have this, and we can't start until this time. And we're like, oh, no, we're just going to have to give up on this huge $20,000 donation. But what happened was, Stratton Skellinger said, why don't you check out my painter? And I called them, and they came over, and they were there the next day. And they got it done, and it's just the face is painted. The sides still need a lot of work. But the face just looks so beautiful now. So we do weddings inside and outside. And here we are, it's Tom, getting ready for the Strawberry Festival that we have every June. Kurt, you can see it, right? Pam. And we had an Oktoberfest, and Roman Roth from Wolfer came and taught some polka lessons, and it was a lot of fun. We actually ran out of bratwurst that day. I mean, we might have had one left. We had plenty for everybody, but that's how popular it was. And here's a wedding that I won't say if those are the people that donated the money or not, but that wedding was held in September. It was Oktoberfest. And then this year we did something new, which was Tom's idea. He said, let's have a tree lighting. So Martyrs donated that tree. And we got money donated for the lights. And we had carols, cookies, and cocoa outside. And it was just, all different people from the community came, and there was just such a nice, beautiful, warm feeling. And just to mention, of course, this is the food pantry, that the Old Whalers Church not only houses the Presbyterian Church and the historical portion of that, but it also houses there are tenants in a sense. The food pantry, 7 different AA meetings every week. It has housed the synagogue, except for just today, 5 o'clock. They had a stroll to the synagogue from our building, and they brought the Torahs to the new building, and it was really very, very exciting. And then we also had, we had synagogue, LGBTQ, the food pantry, the art camp comes from here to our building, and it really is a community center, but it needs help. It needs a lot of help. So I just want to mention that a lot of the history, and I brought my book along too, is in Dorothy Ingersoll-Sikowski's book called Sag Harbor, The Story of an American Beauty, which is a really extensive history of Sag Harbor. And she's a member of the church, actually. She's getting older. And here is the Annie Cooper Boyd House, as some of you are very familiar. I've been a trustee for 6 years. Will be the end of my trusteeship. But I make a lot of videos, and I hope to continue that. I make a lot of historical videos. But this is a great place. If you haven't visited the Annie Cooper Boyd House, they'll be opening May the 12th. And they'll have an exhibit of Annie Cooper Boyd's paintings for you to go and see, and events through the summer. And there'll be open hours too. And we could talk another 3 hours just about Annie Cooper Boyd. And just a few Sag Harbor surprises. Did you know that Sag Harbor had toll roads with 8 cents per wagon, 4 cents for 1 horse? And both the Sag Harbor Bridgehampton Turnpike and the Hampton Road 114 both had toll booths because the state did not take care of roads at that point. So the local entities had to take care of the roads. So they charged tolls. And I love for every score of hogs or sheep, it's 4 cents. For every score of cattle or mules, 10 cents. You can just imagine them coming to this gate and paying tolls to get into Sag Harbor until the state began to take over the roads.
And so they had tolls too, also in the
Oh, tolls in North Haven? We would get, it would be very profitable this day and age, right? And here's ice skating on Otter Pond, which I just wish we still had. You know, it's brackish because it's open out to the cove. Otter Pond used to be just a freshwater pond, and they got a permit long ago to dig it over to the cove. But they created gates that closed off the salt water from coming into Otter Pond. So people would skate. They would have like professional skaters. They had hockey. They'd light bonfires. They'd have lights. And it just was like one of those things that I would always hope to go back and be a part of, or wish we could. But not only do we have the opening, but we also have climate change, right? So we don't get as much ice as we used to. But how beautiful that would be to be ice skating on there as a community event.
Is that the steeple?
Yeah, I think it is the steeple right there. And as you all know, the park used to have horse races, and that's the same grandstand that is there today. And then, I know April knows that they used to have pie eating contests. They had 200 children's gardens there for kids to have their own plot of land to grow their own garden. And they would have dances out under the stars. And these are the things that I wish we could bring back, the old, beautiful Sag Harbor traditions. Look how packed that was. People would come out on the train. And then just Longworth used to have shops.
And it was longer.
Yeah, that's Longworth. And then this is the Sag Harbor Elementary School, but I think this might be my last slide. So, but I was over at Pearson, and my class was the first class to come into the Sag Harbor Elementary School building. So it was the Sacred Heart Academy. It was a convent. And a school that kids lived in and came from places like South America and lived in the buildings. And there was a church, and there were other houses that had been moved in Sag Harbor. But on Halloween Day, when I was in there as a 5th grader, they exhumed the nuns' bodies from the cemetery. It which is because it was All Souls Day and All Saints Day, there was a particular day that they had to exhume the bodies. I think that was Mr. Labrosi. The cemetery was back by the back parking lot. No? So they exhumed the bodies on Halloween while we were in school and moved them to the sister house in New Jersey. There were stones, I believe. Does anyone else remember that? Susan remember? Yeah. So, but now they've cleared it out, and it is now a thriving elementary school, but no church, no other building. Oh, did they? Wow.
They took it all apart. Thanks. They took it all apart and buried it. Hey!
So, how fantastic was that? I mean, just amazing. So Nancy is one of those people that I met here by chance. I can't even remember how we met, but, we started talking, and boy, I mean, her stories are like the best, and they're so vivid, but you're also, to me, like a total role model of someone that makes a community a community. I mean, in every way, your whole history here has been so impactful and beautiful and simple. Like, I mean, I cannot say how impressive I think it is what you've done here. You're like a spiritual first responder or something that's always on the job. And I mean that. And we always end up talking about some kind of spirituality here in the church. And I swear it's not intentional, but it just comes up. I think that people, we've seen a lot of people's best selves here. We're really lucky for that. And this is one of my favorite talks I've ever heard here. So thank you so much for sharing everything. I'd love to know, how in the world did you think about the morning program? How did it come up? Did it just evolve from you teaching music to the children? Because I think it seems like I'm watching your slides and I'm thinking, well, if every school in America did this, there would be no more division and strife. But of course, probably not true at this point, but.
Well, first I'll back up to, I think we met because I did the article about you for the home column that I wrote for the Sag Harbor Express. Was that the first time
Oh my God, maybe, yeah.
I came over to your house? And I don't want to be one of those, giving accolades that instead of receiving them, but I really believe when I think, and Tom and I were just talking this morning, how much April has done for this community. I mean,
That's just
it's truly amazing.
two girls just working away. But well, thank you for saying that. But back to the morning program.
Okay, morning program. We started at Earth Day at the park, and everybody liked it so much that we both just decided to continue. And it was Joan Frisicano was the principal at the time, and Eileen Kachanas, I think, helped bring it. We met and said, what would this look like? And we just started doing it every single day. And then it evolved. It got greater almost every year. We got a theme, and I would write a theme song for the year, like Shazam, we're superheroes, and some of the others. So, and it just kept going and going. And parents, 99% really love it. And they love being with their children at the start of the day. They love being a part of the school family. And it's just been one of the greatest things I think a school could ever imagine.
They have this thing called the Key Communicators meetings. I don't know if they exist anymore at the school, and they were at 7:30 a.m. I am so not a morning person. I used to see Nada Berry there, and you would go to the Key Communicators meetings, and I'd be like half dazed. But the greatest thing that ever happened to me at one of those meetings was I went downstairs, and it happened to be when the morning program was going on, and I was like, what's going on here? And everybody was singing, the parents, the children, everybody. And I was like, just like flattened. I was so gobsmacked that this was happening. It was just, it's such a brilliant thing, and I was like moved to tears instantly. Like, this is the best thing. Go ahead.
She remembered starting her day with song. I thought that's kind of where you first got the thought from. When my mom grew up in Southampton, but I thought she once said that she remembered that.
Maybe, but I don't think that's how it started there.
So it's a little bit genetic, maybe. Anyway, that's a brilliant thing, and I'm so in awe of what you've accomplished. Did you not say that you're up to about 200 congregants at the Old Whalers Church now?
Just on Easter. On Easter we had 200.
That counts. That counts.
Okay, and Christmas was even more. But last week we had the rabbi come in because they're leaving our church after almost 3 years of being housed within our building. They held their services in the sanctuary. They had Torah studies, and they had rented offices and stuff. And we got to be like this one big happy family. And I invited Rabbi Dan Geffen in to speak last Sunday, and it was just beautiful. We had 66 people there. I think they count every week. That's one of the things. But someone once said, it's not the number, it's the person that needs to be there is there. And I try to think about that it's not just but we are definitely growing from 10 to 60 or 50. It's definitely, and we have this beautiful coffee hour afterwards each Sunday downstairs. I make a joke almost every Sunday that we have the best coffee in town. And I don't ever drink coffee, but I say that so that people.
And great music.
And great, oh gosh. We have Walter Klaus, who is a world-famous organist.
Yeah, do you guys all know about Walter Klaus? He's huge. He's like an amazing, amazing organist. I've had the pleasure of hearing him play a couple of times, and it's an astonishing thing that people that live here don't even know about. I mean, there's so many things that people don't know about what has been Sag Harbor's history, what has made it so rich. You feel it. People get here and they kind of go, I like this place. I feel like this is the place I'd like to be. And they don't really know, but it's all of this stuff that people have been doing for so long, and then the way that people have somehow managed to stay knit together in a healthy way and not get crazy on each other.
Except at the Black Buoy.
Except that, yeah. Well, that's, and to you seem to have been downplaying a little bit the Black Buoy's exciting reputation. Is this something that we should do? Because I've always sort of treasured the idea of there being a bar where occasionally somebody would be thrown out the front door for...
Maybe Murph's. Maybe
Yeah.
Murph's has taken over that reputation.
Yeah.
But someone, I think not too many years ago, had contacted the family to say, we would like to buy the name Black Buoy, we'd like to reestablish a Black Buoy, and I think that those are all kind of neat ideas to go. Sometimes I always think to go forward, we need to go backward.
Yes.
I like the idea of having the Black Buoy.
Yes, if somebody would take one of those spaces that comes available on Main Street and put a Black Buoy in it, yes,
It's right
please.
there. Well, the LT Burger. The other funny thing about the Black Buoy is that John Steinbeck drank there with my Aunt Rose every day. And every day he'd walk by and he'd bring his dog in. And there's a story that they tell. I don't think it was Charlie, but it was one of his dogs that they came in. They kept coming in and having his beer in the afternoon on the way to probably the Barrens. And he'd bring his dog, and then one day my Uncle Jim, who was married to my Aunt Rose, hung up a sign, "No dogs allowed." And so the story goes that John Steinbeck walked in and said, "Jim, what's this about? Why can't I bring my dog into the Black Buoy anymore?" And my Uncle Jim, he said, and John Steinbeck says, "He doesn't cause any problems. He's not hurting anybody." And so my Uncle Jim went and took the sign down and said, "You're right, John. You can bring your dog into the Black Buoy."
How I'd heard this story was that some patron didn't like that there was always a dog lying on the floor that the patron probably tripped over,
Right.
and tried to stir up trouble and said the dog shouldn't be allowed. And then all the other patrons took that guy and kicked him out the front door. That was my preferred version. But I'll go
I have Aunt Rose telling the story on a video. One day I'll have to get that.
All right, I stand corrected. Who would like to ask a question of any kind? And who would like to establish a black boy and go to Bill Grimble's sermon this Sunday? I think that sounds very. Do you know about Bill Grimble? He was also like a famous. I mean, he's not technically an interfaith minister at all. He's a real Presbyterian minister. But the one time I ever heard him speak, it was kind of like the way that you were talking about keeping things oriented toward Earth Day and a kind of an interfaith take on God so that it wouldn't be too specifically religious and that you would have this big open-hearted, open-handed.
He married Gwen.
Bill Grandma.
Yeah.
It means he officiated at her wedding. On the ferry. Yeah, Bill is a wonderful person. He has a lot of books out. I mean, he's written a lot of books. He's very
We've
amazing.
actually been trying to get him to come here and speak. Talina, do you know what?
He's coming in November.
When I can, because Nancy is a fantastic speaker. Her sermons are so on it. It's just,
Thank you.
I cannot thank you enough for being there. And so I was married in that church in 1952.
Yeah. Aw.
Actually,
Thank you, Nada.
memories. Do you have photos? Somewhere.
It's so meaningful to me that Nada comes, I'll tell you, and Jean and my family. It's always just so nice to have some friendly faces there on a Sunday. Thank you. I try to, the prayers and stuff, just put a lot of thought into making them something that can reach your heart, I guess. But
Yeah.
Thank you, Nada. That's very kind.
Word on the street is you are reaching hearts.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Candace, can you ask that question again in the mic? Just so
What's
we
the
get it?
difference between your church and the Unitarian Church?
So my church, which is not really my church, but Old Whalers Church is actually a First Presbyterian Church who is allowing me to be there as an interfaith minister. But they're making me take classes on like Reformation theology and stuff. The Unitarian Universalist Church, it's actually not a church, right? It's a meeting house, and that's on the Turnpike. And that is a different, I guess you'd call it religion, where they are more humanist. You know, they're into humanism. They're not into necessarily God or anything. They are more like into being good people. They have 7 principles that they follow, and but it's a lovely place as well. It has a whole different group of people. But yeah.
Well, Nancy and I, Achenbach in the front row here, has been very involved in concerning herself with the Christ Episcopal Church that's on 114 across from St. Andrews, and that has suffered a lack of congregant participation. All churches are, and I think people just want to go someplace and be around someone who's understanding and empathetic and community, feel better. Pardon?
We do have a ministry coming.
Oh, do you?
She grew up in New York and Nineveh. And she is, yes.
Cool.
That's great.
Cecily Broderick. And so we're very excited about that.
Yay.
When I was in Scotland last May with my daughter, she was looking at Edinburgh College to go to Edinburgh, so we went to Scotland for a week. And many of the cathedrals and large churches are sandwich shops and art galleries. And I think I read that sort of like and that's where John Knox, who was one of the people that created Presbyterianism, we were right across from St. Giles Church and the statue of John Knox. So very few, I think Europe is basically very secular. And but so I asked our tour guide when we went up to see the Highlands, I said, why is it that people aren't going to church here? And he goes, people just want to believe what they want to believe. And I think that my approach to religion is allowing people to believe what they want to believe.
You celebrate the earth and love and people and surroundings. And that's what is making it so inclusive, I believe.
Thank you.
It's a little fundamental healing.
What I don't understand is why we can't do what you want to do for Mashmuet and for parades down Main Street and, you know, all the things that are creative and fun and, you know, people want to come from all over because something really is happening there that's, what's stopping that from being recreated?
The number of people here, Nancy, that come now, it's a changed environment, and if you talk to the chief of police, it's very limited how much they'll allow us to use the public spaces that such as that road. We've tried all sorts of things over the last 50 years that just about none of them have been successful, of closing it off at one point or having certain parades or marches and they just pushed it to the side. It's just become a complex situation, I think, and they're nervous.
Maybe with a more responsive administration in Village Hall, we will be able to do more things like that, because we've applied for doing a parade. Like when we were opening the church, we thought it'd be super fun to do a parade. Before we opened the cinema, I really wanted to do a flash mob on Main Street and just like have people planted who would be dressed as actors and then just like break into song and just 3 minutes. I just thought it would have been super fun. Hide some speakers somewhere, but they make it very, very difficult to do that because they say, I think this is going to be familiar. What are we going to do about parking if you do that? Oh, you can't interrupt traffic flow, as if this were the most important thing on earth. It's
well, maybe
When the cinema opened up, they, I forget who asked.
Yeah.
Did you apply for a permit? And she went, oh my God, no, da, 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 da. And they said, well, there won't be a problem, but how many people do you expect? And she said, I don't know,
I said, maybe 150 at the most.
I mean, it looked like that Whalers parade.
Yeah.
I took a photograph.
And nobody minded.
The whole Main Street and Washington Street were closed down, and at one point they both started yelling, light it up, light it up. It was such a great moment.
Steinbeck Park may help us in this way.
Yes.
To the library, when we moved from the temporary space to the library, that brought the community in many ways together, passing the book along. But it's far and few between, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
We asked for permission to do the sunrise service at Marine Park for Easter, and they said, okay, it's $25 for the permit and $275 to use Marine Park for the 8 people that would probably show up. So we're like, whoa, Old Whalers does not have $275 that they don't have spent already on something. But I love the idea of not being the village of no, of being the village of yes, and seeing getting creative government and creative people involved in bringing some of these beautiful things back that build community and make it even a more special and wonderful place to live. I think that would be really an exciting and fun project for all of us.
I think that's the word. I think it's just like letting people have fun together. Just makes all the difference in the world. It's not complicated. It can be like singing. It can be like the morning program. Yeah, it could be something really, really simple.
The thing that I'm walking away from today is when you brought to the church and to the programs at school is health.
Yes.
It's just simply health. People are, being able to express an outward and breathe and, et cetera, et cetera. That's deep.
Yeah, it's really great.
Well, what What's so wonderful about all of the parades? Can everybody hear me?
No, but use the mic so we can record it.
Okay, I'll try it.
Thank you.
It scares me.
We know, Gina.
But it was so wonderful about all the parades, et cetera, and group functions, is the preparation. You know, because you found a group of people from every different organization, they were planning how they were going to participate in it. And you could say that was the most fun. And then but then it brought it all together when all these people were so proud of whatever they came up with for this particular function. And, you know, it stuck with you.
Well, we used to also be able to do we did 3 parties, big community parties down on Long Wharf. Remember, so we'd use Bay Street's tent the next day when it was all cleaned out and kind of, not as clean and definitely not fancy, but everybody would come and we would get restaurants to donate food and just have a big old party where you would see, well, when we had a dry cleaner here, the dry cleaner, and, your neighbors. It was just a really nice thing to do. I'd love to do more stuff like that. And maybe we could, the church, we always talk about collaborating. Now I feel like we're in a planning session. We always have talked about collaboration. So working out something with you, and maybe we could help with funding if you want to do things at Marine Park.
That'd be great.
We love that stuff.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful.
Yeah. Does anyone have any more comments or questions? Tish?
I think one problem as far as getting people together is that Sag Harbor is a village. I'm in North Haven Village. And then we have people who are in Bay Point, and they're really Southampton town, even though we are all Sag Harbor. However, you don't have a voice being in North Haven. Not you own property in Sag Harbor, so you have a voice, and you have the cinema, you own property in Sag Harbor. But the people who aren't, well, you can't vote, you can't be on those things. And that's a difficult situation, I think, that we have. Because I think a lot of people on the outskirts, as the money came in, the people started spreading out, selling their homes, going more out into the surrounding areas, into Pine Neck and Noyak and, 142. Yeah.
Amen to that.
That's the problem, but I can see having separate little governments, I understand that, but as far as the people acting together, for me not to have a say when I've been here 72 years of my life, it's very hard. And I think with the police, there's always a threat of being sued, and that's what they're thinking about and worrying about, and I can understand that, but I know when Tom was a policeman, he was on the street. And we have to see our policemen more on the street, not to bring up a different topic, but we're a community. We have to live and be together, and I think that's very important that we're visible in all the stages of our beautiful town, village.
All right. Well, let's keep having parties together and having fun.
Nancy to sing us out.
And I was just going to say, would you please? Thank you so much for coming.
Newer song, just kind of a tongue-in-cheek song that I'd love you all to sing along with, and it's the chorus part that we would sing with. It goes like this: have a beautiful day, have a beautiful day, have a beautiful day, have a beautiful day. Okay, try that with me. Here we go. Have a beautiful day. Wait in your arms. Have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful day.
leave the elephant tusks alone. No more poaching